Hi, everybody. Thanks for continuing to watch the Barry Chronicles. I am thrilled to say that we're at 244 subscribers, the last I checked, which was just a couple minutes ago. And in all sincerity, that means a lot. I appreciate the comments that are left because I know it's validating to me in a lot of ways that I'm not the only person going through this. Some of you might be here for the entertainment value. I'll give you that. It's a lot of it. And others of you may be here because you're going through something similar or you know somebody who's going through something similar. In particular, this portion of the series, which is the next part, is broken into 5 videos, kind of like under its own umbrella, called "Uncovering the Identity of My Donor." This is this is a heavy part of the story, as are I suppose a lot of them. But I'm going to pick it up in part two. I'm going to try to crank through the next 3 videos after this one as quickly as possible. So I'll start here. In late September of 2017, I was baptized as an unwitting new member into the community of the donor conceived. It's an intense, tightly knit group, one that, though it would be months before I'd know for myself, I was actually a part of. In the early days, I had enough to handle with unpacking this sudden dysphoria in my own head. There was little space to dive into intimate, fully formed groups where others like me shared or commiserated and navigated the experience together. I just wasn't ready for it. And yet, I had unintentionally invited in a small community of close friends in the early stages. I told a few of them about everything that I was navigating with Morgan on her quest to find her biological roots. How could I not? It's a hell of a conversation starter. And Morgan's biological connection to me was undoubtedly a real one. The DNA had substantiated that. Armed with something unique to share, with the people in my world, I shared. And at the time, I was simply a medium for her to uncover her truth, one more person to help close a foundational chapter in her life and answer those simple but profound questions of identity. The ones so many of us are so reassured of that we never imagine questioning them. But by early September 2017, both Morgan and I were confident that one of my mom's brothers, one of my uncles, was Morgan's biological father. Not because we'd known that they donated sperm, but because in a sampling of plausible explanations, or at least explanations that felt plausible to us, it was the only one that was plausible. I was like this detached third-party detective sleuth for Morgan. She was looking for family. She had questions of origin as the child of a sperm donor. And then suddenly, this colossal question of hers was also mine. One night, Morgan was donor conceived and I was an observer. The next, I was as critical a piece to Morgan's story as she was to mine. The painter placing a brush in my hand to form a shared piece de resistance. I'm sorry if you're from France, that was my best effort. But imagine my surprise, and the surprise of the friends I'd brought along for the ride, when I explained that none of my uncles were Morgan's biological father, but the real truth was far more dramatic and compelling for me personally, which in short order led to the question, if Morgan is your sister, then who is your biological father? What a dramatic shift 2.5 weeks can make. So now fast forward and pretend it's October 5th of 2017. After touching down in Washington, D.C. with Morgan, we found ourselves seated at Thomas's kitchen table. Thomas is our half brother. We're probing into one another's backstories, striking intimate chords that are rarely reached with close friends, let alone total strangers. But that's hardly an adequate assessment of who we are. We're blood siblings, anchored by a connection to a common link that is uncommon to the rest of the world. Among the three of us, I'm actually the only one who grew up not knowing I was donor conceived. So while we're all new at this siblingship, I am in fact the proverbial dawdling horse in the race, because both Morgan and Thomas have already faced some of these questions of identity that I'm facing now, and I'm playing catch up. But they're both well adjusted, and objectively, they're success stories in life. They've always known about this question mark in their lives, and they haven't really been hamstrung by it as individuals. Together, though, that question is palpable, because the only reason we're here is because of this question mark. Who is our biological father? It turns out, having always known they were donor conceived, they know quite a bit more about this blue-eyed mystery man than I do. Morgan says her mom hadn't been shy about sharing details of her origins to the extent that she knew, which she recounted to me and Thomas. Her mother had gone to a couple of fertility specialists and ultimately landed with one who'd developed a growing reputation for success with inseminations and successful births by a sperm donor. She was told that the donors were all resident physicians at the University of Rochester in the early 1980s, she explained. And this jibes with the brief anecdotes I've heard from my mother and my father in the past few days. Thomas nods his head in offering an agreement that he'd heard the same thing from his own mother. And he adds, when the doctor asked her what features she might want or might like in a donor, he says, my mom had remarked that she wanted him to look like Tom Selleck. And of course, it's only funny because the tall, dark, hairy 80s heartthrob looks nothing like Thomas or me, for that matter, and certainly not Morgan. Thomas's mom loves her son the way adoring mothers do, but even she could acknowledge that she didn't get the request or wish, or however it is you want to label it. It wasn't a mandate, but even if it was an arbitrary, inconsequential one, I have no idea what my parents asked for. But Morgan's mom had in fact made some requests of her own. A self-proclaimed mutt, Morgan and her family were a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Morgan's mother had said as much to the fertility doctor. As a result, she was hopeful for someone with a mixed European background that was similar to the family. She did, however, call out that there was no Jewish ancestry in the family lineage, among other things. But seated at Thomas's table, though, it was abundantly clear, with each of us having 50% Jewish heritage, that not only was our donor Jewish, but expertly so, having 100% Jewish origins in order for that math to work, and no Tom Selleck lookalikes. In fact, Morgan's mother made only one other request, that it be a one-time donor. How wrong that turned out to be. I'll talk to you guys soon.